Urgent, Lukashenko has given the order. A massive army is already at the border. Pokrovsk has been cleared. Our forces gave the occupiers a taste of Berezova porridge. Putin's offensive has stalled. A low blow in the Sumy region. The front has never been like this before. All this in our episode of Infernal Point. Urgent, Belarus is advancing on Ukraine. The first Russian troops are already near the border. Entire echelons are preparing to move in. Is this really the 2022 scenario all over again? Putin and Lukashenko, they smirk slyly and present everything under the guise of joint exercises. Tensions are rising. Belarus declares war. Not only Ukraine is at risk. We'll tell you about the threat and the current situation right now.
The first echelon with Russian troops and equipment has arrived in Belarus. Everything is by the book. Loud statements and promises of strong friendship. But what's really behind this new wave of allied activity?
As of today, the military alliance between Russia and Belarus is an essential condition for the further development of our states. This is of great importance given the current threats. With the start of the special military operation, this became one of the top priorities, said a serviceman of the Russian armed forces.
The Belarusian Ministry of Defense immediately reported in. Preparations have begun for the strategic exercise Zapad 2025, which is scheduled for September. They claim that the maneuvers are supposedly routine and are held once every 2 years. But history teaches us that it is precisely under the guise of exercises. In 2021, Russia amassed troops at Ukraine's borders. And already at the beginning of 2022, it launched a full-scale invasion.
The very first echelons, which are military units complete with their essential equipment that have recently arrived in Belarus, can be effectively utilized for two primary purposes. Firstly, for the crucial practicing and refining of coordination among the various units, and secondly, for the potential and significant further buildup of formidable strike forces within the region.
And although the official exercise scenario is still classified, its direction is obvious. After all, the manuals are the same, the scenario is the same. Troop redeployment, creation of a strike force, preparation for future operations. All the things the aggressor used to start the large-scale war against Ukraine. In
this case, it is necessary. Coordination between Ukraine and our Western partners is needed to send a signal, I think, not only to the Russian Federation, but also to Belarus, about the inadmissibility of using these exercises as a cover for preparing further actions. We understand that the Russians still have the temptation, for example, to open a northern front against Ukraine, to launch a special operation against the Suwałki corridor. Obviously, that concerns Poland and Lithuania. And there are various different scenarios.
The key question remains the scale. So far, the official statements mention 12, 13 or 14,000 servicemen. However, according to the intelligence of the Baltic countries, up to 150,000 troops could take part in the maneuvers. If these numbers are confirmed, it will be the largest concentration of troops on NATO's eastern flank in
recent years, a period marked by significant global shifts and rapid advancements across various sectors, we have witnessed profound changes in how we live, work, and interact with the world around us. We vividly remember how even the prominent Keller paid a visit to the controversial Lukashenko. We also distinctly recall a significant number of official statements and strategic redeployments that occurred. Now, for example, German Eurofighter jets are being sent to Poland, along with many other redeployment actions of additional troops to NATO's eastern flank, which is a significant and important deployment.
At the same time, other alarming steps are emerging. For example, Belarus is forming a new airborne assault brigade. And where exactly? Of course, near the Ukrainian border. This was announced by the commander of the Belarusian Special Operations Forces, Vadim Denisenko. According to him, the unit is being stationed in the Homel region, north of Chernihiv and Kyiv regions.
As of today, this is, so to speak, a restless direction that keeps all of us on alert. That is why the decision was made to establish a separate airborne assault brigade there. And as of today, we have already begun forming this brigade. One of the battalions has already been formed.
This refers to the 37th Guards Air Assault Brigade. Its formation is part of a large-scale strengthening of the Belarusian army. New artillery and anti-aircraft missile units are also being created. In addition, the parliament is discussing rewriting the law on martial law, expanding the powers of the president, the Security Council, and the Ministry of Defense.
Putin is now relying on several pillars. The first pillar is the belief that the Ukrainian response is an anomaly and that such resistance will not occur in European countries. The second significant assertion being made is that Article 5 of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization's Washington Treaty is in fact a complete and utter myth, and that the alliance will unequivocally not deliver the promised and expected collective response. And the third crucial pillar is that the People's Republic of China, with its significant global influence, will undoubtedly strengthen the strategic position of the Russian Federation in terms of both extensive economic and vital political cooperation, as it is profoundly beneficial for China to place the United States of America in a considerably difficult and challenging geopolitical position. And thus, while the US is preoccupied with Russia and Europe, China will resolve the issue of Taiwan.
Without a doubt, the West 2025 exercises are a challenge not only for Ukraine, but for the entire region. Thank you. Despite the fact that, according to the Ukrainian State Border Guard Service, there are currently no signs of a direct threat to our country, Kyiv is preparing for any possible developments, just like its Western allies. Poland has already announced that in response to the actions of Moscow and Minsk, it will conduct its own large-scale exercises. The Iron Defender involves the participation of NATO partners. The question now is whether, with time, these exercises will remain merely a show of force or become yet another round of escalation.
A gray zone and enemy rear lines. They operate in Pokrovsk, where the enemy is literally breathing down their necks. These scouts are accomplishing the impossible. They find the weak spot, guide the artillery, and point out exactly where to strike so that the enemy can never recover. Their actions are honed to perfection, down to the smallest detail. This infuriates the Russian generals. They are losing their elite. However, this is only the beginning. What our forces have planned, we'll lift the curtain in just a moment.
Operations on the front line and even behind enemy lines. Clearing settlements, ambushes, and hunting down enemy sabotage and reconnaissance groups. All this and more is the specialty of the NGU Rubish Brigade's scouts.
War, a devastating conflict causing immense suffering, loss of life, and widespread destruction, profoundly alters history and human lives.
With the call sign, Ramon began his combat path back in February 2022. At first it was infantry, assault operations. In 2023, the man became a scout. He says there's plenty of work now in the Pokrovsk direction.
This includes support for the infantry as well as assistance to mortar crews and also to UAV teams, because the current situation is such that even these units are now encountering direct contact. So we help everyone. Some fires that need to be put out right now.
We often have to work in the gray zone, which has now stretched out a lot, all because of the abundance of drones, and enemy drones in the sky are also forcing our scouts to adjust their work. For example, there are fewer night missions now because the Russians have started attaching thermal imagers even to FPV drones.
Right now, the actual front line as such is very much blurred and indistinct, and that's precisely why, in principle, there is a significant opportunity to operate effectively within the gray zone, a challenging and undefined area. Right now, the battlefield is simply monitored 24/7 by drones, and it's almost impossible for me to approach anywhere unnoticed. Once you go in, they already know about you.
Young people are actively joining reconnaissance efforts, even youth are involved now. The soldier with the call sign Kamaz has only been in the army for a month and a half. He's only 22. And joining the army was his conscious and motivated decision.
I started attending the military academy. I realized it wasn't for me. I was, studying for a position at the Territorial Recruitment Center. I realized it wasn't for me, so I decided to leave the academy and join the city unit. I wanted to join the infantry.
The guys have already gone through their baptism by fire. The first mission to the front line was intense. We came under fire, but we completed the mission. And after returning, the young soldier finally understood.
I came back from the mission. I realized that I was ready for something else. That this was my calling. So you felt like you were in the right place? Yes.
You too can help our scouts in their extremely difficult work by supporting the brigade's fundraiser for electronic warfare equipment. After all, these soldiers are a prime target for the invaders, and the enemy is constantly hunting them from the sky. And your donation can help protect them from this. Ihor Makhlo, Dmytro Kornienko, and Serhiy Marchenko. Fact ICTV, United News.
Right now, the whole truth about the situation in Sumy region. The enemy planned to reach Sumy and celebrate victory, but instead decided to flee, leaving devastation behind. A spectacular failure of the enemy offensive. Our forces bared their teeth at Putin's army, held back the enemy onslaught, and are now actively eliminating its remnants. The artillery works non-stop, and the armed forces of Ukraine deliver yet another dose of retribution. How we manage to drive the enemy back, don't miss what's next.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
Wounded and battered but unbroken Sumy region.
All kinds of drones, guided munitions and aerial bombs reach us.
How do people live in the border region of Sumy, which is shelled by Russia every day? Here is the result of a Russian aerial bomb strike. Krasnopilya is a settlement that the Russians are destroying with particular cynicism.
They built all this themselves. It was constructed even before the revolution. Father to Nevstoy, father to...
They didn't survive war.
They didn't make it through.
A day of intense work on the northern Slobozhansk China front. Right now, the artillerymen are preparing the cannon. Apparently, the target will be infantry. Island. The tactic is active defense. The enemy's offensive in Sumy region is stalling.
As long as we're standing here, they won't get anything. 6 kilometers, people are working.
Sumy region is what impresses the most. The war doesn't stop Ukrainians from harvesting their crops. And now as we're driving, we see that the fields are sown, meaning corn. And what are they being tended to?
Yes, it's not just corn here, there's also sunflower grain. So almost all the fields are being cultivated as much as possible.
The village of Krasnopilya is 12 kilometers away, from the border with Russia. A community that before the war was successful and self-sufficient, one of the best in the Sumy region. But historically, it so happened that these very lands served as a shield against the raids of the horde.
In the modern wars with the Russian horde, Krasnopilya has once again become a stronghold, defending our state from the east.
Now life in the village has come to a standstill. Everywhere there are ruins and craters from aerial bombs. Enemy aircraft have literally wiped out entire streets here. The village of Krasnopilya. Before the full-scale invasion, about 10,000 civilians lived here. It's hard to say how many people still remain here now. The center of the village looks like this. There is a lot of destruction. So far, we haven't encountered a single living soul here, and the constant shelling makes it clear to us. It shows us just how intense the fighting is now on the Sumy border region. Almost everything in the center of the village has been destroyed. Not a single administrative building has survived intact. Mr. Vasil is showing us what's left of the village council. The Krasnopilya House of Culture. Only the walls are still standing. The Russians used a missile to destroy this building.
Approximately 200 to 300 artillery shells reportedly hit the village of Krasnopilya. These shells caused significant damage.
The school was destroyed as a result of airstrikes. At present, all that remains of one of the best educational institutions in the Sumy region are ruins.
This was the school that Sumy region was truly proud of. And in recent years, obviously due to security concerns, nothing was happening here. No classes were held. In other words, it was a 100% civilian facility that was destroyed back in the winter. In 2024, first one missile hit, and then in the spring of 2025, 3 or 4 more completely destroyed this school. As you can see today, it is impossible for the children of the Krasnopilia community to study here. This is what the Russian world really looks like.
We noticed local residents near the church here. The church has also suffered damage. The windows are shattered and the walls are scarred by shrapnel. But the Russians did not target it directly. The parish belongs to the UOC, that is the Moscow Patriarchate.
And the Akathis are being read. Yes, everything is being done. Little by little, everything is getting done.
And what do people pray for? What do they pray for the most?
For the war to end, for peace to come, for people to come to their senses.
Local utility workers are trying to tidy up the area around the church. Throughout the entire history of Krasnopilia, the village has never suffered such destruction in any war.
All the surrounding villages, almost all of them have remained. The abandoned ones are still there. The houses, everything that was built, it was all constructed before the revolution. Father Donetsk, this.
In this war, they didn't survive it?
They didn't survive this one.
And just a few kilometers from Krasnopilia, our soldiers are holding back the enemy horde.
Island!
The buffer zone in neighboring Belgorod region is expanding. This section of the border is held by fighters of the 117th Sumy Territorial Defense Brigade. Local men whose motivation can't be questioned.
We all joined the military to bravely defend our beloved country, especially when you are serving near your very own home. As the old saying goes, even the familiar walls truly help when you are at home.
None of the artillerymen are professional soldiers. The commander of the cannon, Maxim, in civilian life, headed the Department of Culture, Sports and Tourism of the Shoska City Council. By education, he is a historian.
Well, you know, there's a certain depth to it, a feeling that, well, this is how it should be. I'm far from truly judging those individuals who have chosen to leave the country, but, you know, to leave for another country like a complete coward, like a truly beaten dog that's been cruelly thrown out of its own home. No, that's absolutely not for me, not in any way.
The guys say we're proud. The Russians' intentions to capture the Sumy region have failed. The enemy hardly attacks with equipment. Their infantry is taken out by artillery and drones.
The cost of one drone is about $1,000, roughly speaking. A shell costs about the same. $1 billion means 1 million targets hit. Even if it's just one of their soldiers, it's not a waste to use a shell on him.
The artillerymen say it's not 2022 anymore, there are shells and the work continues. Gun, ready for the intense battle. That's it, quickly take cover. The primary target has been successfully hit. Yes, holding back the enemy is neither simple nor easy. But the front is held up by the shoulders of such warriors. And how is your mood? For
our generation, war has fallen to our lot, but that's the fate of a Cossack.
Reporting from Sumy border region, Ihor Levenok, Maxim Cheblin, Ihor Shkepet, details on Intermarathon TV, United News.
Pokrovsk is burning in the fire of the assault. The enemy is attacking from all sides. Shells are falling like thunder from the sky. Drones are tearing through the air. Russian troops are not stopping for a second. The pressure is insane and the situation is becoming increasingly tense. But Ukrainian soldiers are standing their ground and not retreating. The danger is drawing closer, and this is not just a threat, it's a fight for life and death. Will the armed forces of Ukraine be able to avoid repeating the terrible fate of Avdiivka? More on this in the following report.
Covered with nets and almost deserted, this is the anti-drone route from Kramatorsk to Pokrovsk. But even such protection doesn't guarantee 100% safety.
They didn't have any. It's welded, you know.
Enemy drones are in the air, and on the ground, Russian soldiers are attacking. The approaches to Pokrovsk are constantly shaking. The 25th Airborne troops are shelling the Russians.
Basically, they've taken cover under that tree, and most likely they're holding the crossfire right here in the greenery. Try tossing it into that bush over there. Aim more to the left, behind the tree.
These reports were sent to HQ. There's nothing left of the settlement but ruins. But the Russians are still trying to get in here and gain a foothold.
We understand that Lysivka is also a route toward Moskovska. We're holding our line no matter what, right, left, it doesn't matter. We have a mission and we're carrying it out. Yes, it's tough, but we believe in what we're doing and we're taking every possible measure, using everything together in a comprehensive way. And that's why we had this...
Over the past year, the enemy has tried every tactic here, the paratroopers say. They've attacked with armored vehicles, with motorized units, but they haven't broken through the defensive line. That's why now, for the most part, the enemy is throwing in waves of infantry.
The helmet flew off, his head is smashed.
And here, in these shots, you can see the Russians bringing up their infantry in vehicles for new attacks. But they didn't make it to their planned assault. They only managed to disembark.
He's starting to dismount.
The surrounding fields are pockmarked with craters, burned-out vehicles and Russian corpses. But even in broad daylight, knowing they're under the watchful eye of our drones, the enemy still moves around.
Right now, we've clearly spotted 2 Russian individuals walking along the dusty road, who then quickly hid themselves within the crumbling ruins. And our pilots will try to flush them out of there, essentially to wipe them out completely.
No live stream, just one shot. Is this going to be a thermobaric? No, it will definitely be a much lighter experience. Let's try this. We are going in now, so let's try it out.
The pilots direct their drones at the enemy's lair. The ruins are smashed by FPV drones, and to make sure the Russians don't survive, they're also set on fire.
Let's go. No. Those who will be involved, the mortar crews, for example,
are also targeting enemy personnel. 2 more occupiers have just been spotted on the outskirts of the village. They're trying to hide in the thickets.
First, they were near the tree, then they went to ground. After that, they're just lying there in the open.
Drones are scanning and the mortar crews are shelling.
Now they've come up with a rather new tactic, let's say, fishing with live bait. That is to say, they typically send out a small team of about 3 or 4 individuals who move, let's say, toward a settlement, or for example, toward a position. Our forces start to engage, but there's an enemy spotter hanging back with them, and in this way, they pinpoint our position.
Realizing that breaking through the defenses near Lysivka and advancing directly to Pokrovsk won't work, the enemy is trying to wear down our defensive forces. At the same time, they're looking for weak spots on the flanks and trying to bypass the city.
It's like they're almost religiously obsessed with capturing something. They don't need the city as a place to live. And when they talk about liberation, as they call it, it's not for the people. These are just typically occupied territories. That's why they don't need the city at all, because they simply wipe it out, they destroy it, along with the children.
Enemy saboteurs also occasionally sneak into the city itself, but they haven't managed to gain a foothold there. Reporting from Pokrovsk, Ole Kornienko, Zakhar Komak, Fact ICTV, United News.
The enemy is fiercely attacking the Zaporizhzhia front, having received orders to storm at any cost, advancing like a black cloud. But our forces meet them with fire, breaking up their formations. The screams of the occupiers can be heard from afar. That is the sound of their failure. Putin would rather keep quiet about this. What is happening right now and at what cost each meter is gained, you will find out in just a moment.
Rockets.
Red rockets flare up every night above the line of combat contact between Kamensky and Nesteryanka, south of Zaporizhzhia.
It comes in waves. Sometimes there's an escalation, sometimes they come at us, sometimes they push into our area of responsibility, sometimes they go after our neighbors.
Before mass assaults, the artillerymen of the 128th Mountain Assault Brigade say the Russians usually don't start with signal rockets.
It depends, sometimes with artillery preparation and so on.
And almost every time, enemy attacks are preceded by powerful remote airstrikes with guided aerial bombs.
It's the same as it was before. Nothing has really changed. It's just the range. Sometimes they hit farther away, sometimes closer.
Just a few minutes had passed, with Eliza, Strayomny and Boda. The entire crew of the 2S-1 self-propelled howitzer from the 128th Mountain Assault Brigade had left their vehicle. They waited inside, ready for action in case of a Russian attack. It wasn't the first time that night.
Well, this is the second time. It happens a second time. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less.
Their 122mm self-propelled gun now looks more like a stationary howitzer, admits the Gvozdika's driver mechanic.
We're just standing in place like regular cannons, basically.
He says he was taught that it's scary, but you have to do everything, and the Zakarpattia crew tries to do it as quickly as possible. They used to get to their work site on their own. And just as quickly they would leave the firing position. But maneuvering through the steppes of Zaporizhia, Makhvod admits, is now an unaffordable luxury.
There are a lot of drones flying around. Shells, dummy rounds, stakes, so we don't get spotted, because that way it's safer and we can keep firing from our positions longer.
The commander of the 128th self-propelled gun crew says that now they most often have to fire at enemy infantry advancing from the north or at enemy firing positions, covering the occupiers' infantry.
Ours is considered small, so at infantry, at mortars, at various combat assets, at supply vehicles, those that are moving, at lightly armored vehicles.
Ready with the note.
Not loaded for me, ready.
It seems like just a cat in a dugout, but in reality, it's a camouflaged Ukrainian self-propelled artillery unit. In fact, this is exactly what every howitzer near the front line on the southern sector of the front looks like now. Such thorough camouflage requires effort, the self-propelled artillerymen admit. Of the 128th. But the situation near the front line also forces us to make that effort.
Everything is covered with nets, everything is camouflaged as much as possible.
Is this a precaution? Is it true? Is it really necessary? Right now here?
It's a necessity. That's how we survive.
And also thanks to the machine guns of our air defense comrades. Do you have to use it often? When do you congratulate? That weapon is not very large caliber and not as long range as a Carnation, but it is very helpful when the mountain assault crew is preparing to work inside the vehicle. It's charging.
538 complete. That's the total number of items finished. Are the troops truly ready and fully prepared for their important mission? And are they in position?
Gun. This morning, the shells from the self-propelled guns of the 128th Mountain Assault Brigade were flying toward the Stepov-Sherbaki sector. Since mid-May, this section of the front line where the Muscovites tried to attack the Ukrainian defensive line has been under assault almost every day. Reporting from the southern sector of the front in Zaporizhzhia, Oleksandr Motorny, Oleksandr Shian, and Vitaly Ovsyanikov. TSN 1+, United News Marathon.
That's all for this segment. I was your host, Darina Hutsakalo. Even more intense news from the front in our next broadcast. And in the meantime, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. See you soon.